Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 5. This week, we're going to talk about vocabulary instruction, visualization, academic vocabulary, and measurable learning outcomes. I want to take us to our PowerPoint for this week. And again, you're going to be asked to create a PowerPoint response document. You need to listen to the read aloud of See the Ocean. And as you're listening to this read aloud, focus on visualization, getting that picture in your mind from the reading. Your first response is going to be your visualization of the story, See the Ocean. We're going to talk about the Frayer model of vocabulary instruction. This was developed by Dorothy Frayer and her colleagues at the University of Wisconsin. And it's a graphic organizer that provides a thorough understanding of new words. Students are asked to, first of all, provide a definition of the word, facts or characteristics of the word, examples, and non-examples. You can easily adapt the Frayer model to content areas. Here is a website that you can use to explain the Frayer model in response to on your PowerPoint document. Here is the Frayer model. You put your word in the middle, definition in your own words, facts or characteristics about the word, examples, and non-examples. We all know that students have 4 vocabularies. Listening, do they understand what is heard? Speaking, do they know what words to use when speaking? Reading, knowing words to understand what is read. And writing, do they use appropriate words when writing? Now, what do we know from research to guide vocabulary learning? We know that students are active learners as they acquire vocabulary and strategies to enlarge their vocabulary. They need to be active in that process. That does not mean writing down a word and then copying the definition. That is not active learning. That's memorization. Students gain vocabulary learning from immersion in words. Students augment their vocabulary through repeated exposure to words. Where do we get these words? Books, events, planned experiences, educational television, important vocabulary and content material, games, field trips, words of the day. Words are all around us. Now, how do we select these words to teach? Dimino and Taylor wrote a book, Learning How to Improve Vocabulary Instruction Through Teacher Study Groups. And they say that there are 4 ways to choose which vocabulary to teach. It's based on importance, usefulness, student factors, and natural context. Academic language. Academic language is on the MVNU lesson plan template. Well, what is it? That's the language that's used in textbooks, on tests, and in classrooms. Many students who speak English well have trouble comprehending the academic language used in high school and college classrooms. And the main barrier to student comprehension of texts and lectures is low academic vocabulary knowledge. So starting in preschool and kindergarten, academic language should be used with the students. If you're talking about a certain letter, say, for example, you're talking about the letter F with the student. That's a consonant letter, F. And at the kindergarten level, you don't have to go into a lengthy definition of a consonant letter, but just let them hear that vocabulary. Academic vocabulary is based on more Latin and Greek roots than is everyday spoken vocabulary. When we think of academic vocabulary, we think of words that are specific to a discipline. For example, in math, you're talking about angles. You're talking about octagons, polygons. Those are academic language vocabulary. So response 3 is to list 4 ways to choose vocabulary words to teach. And response 4 is, what is academic language? Vocabulary research, as mentioned before, says that students should be active learners as they acquire vocabulary and strategies. They benefit from personalizing the learning of words. As before, they gain from the immersion in words. Repeated exposure is important. Vocabulary learning is long-lasting when students use words in meaningful ways. They need to connect words to what they already know so they can build on that vocabulary. Students need to develop independence in working out word meanings. How do they do this? Well, first, they need to realize that an unknown word has occurred. They need to decide if the word's meaning is important to understanding the passage. They need to check and see if the context around the unknown word can help them. Can they use structural analysis of the word? Use phonics to see if it's a word that somebody knows. If all else fails, look it up or ask someone. Now, whatever way the students decide to do this, it needs to be the least disruptive to the learning process as possible. Vocabulary games in the classroom. Marzano is a guru of vocabulary games. So if you don't know much about Marzano, or maybe have only heard of him, you might want to look up Marzano vocabulary. The Collins CoBuild Student Dictionary is one of the sources that I use over and over again with kids. As said before, students are often taught vocabulary terms by being told to look up definitions in the dictionary and write them out. Well, the Collins Co-Build Dictionary uses the word in the definition and in real-world language. For example, summarize. That means to summarize, you tell the important points about the material read. It's in kid-friendly language, and they understand it. This would be an excellent resource to add to your professional library. Some websites for vocabulary. And you are to explore one of the websites and write a brief description of the information that you found. And that's PowerPoint response number 5. If you have a vocabulary website that you like to use and it's not listed on here, you may include that in your response. Dyslexia. We've talked about dyslexia. What is it? A specific learning disability, neurobiological in origin. Characteristics include difficulty with accurate and/or fluent word recognition, poor spelling, poor decoding skills, deficient with phonological components with reading. Well, when you put those characteristics together, students are going to have difficulty with comprehension. Dyslexia impedes vocabulary growth and background information. So students that have dyslexia, there's no cure or pill that they can get from their pediatrician. They must learn coping strategies. And we've looked at some of those strategies in our flip charts. This week, your dyslexia lesson plan is due. And on the lesson plan, you have to include measurable objectives. A measurable objective has 3 parts. It has a condition, a behavioral verb, and criteria. This link I have sent out earlier, but it's about writing measurable objectives. If you have questions, please ask them quickly because your assignment is due week 5. All right, that's our PowerPoint. So by the end of the week, you're going to understand visualization and how to implement it with trade books. Determine which vocabulary requires explicit instruction and understanding of useful strategies for vocabulary instruction. Determine the definition, purpose, and instructional strategies for academic vocabulary, and understand how to write measurable learning objectives or outcomes. There is no assigned reading for this week. Here is the read aloud for See the Ocean. You're going to upload your dyslexia lesson plan, not only on Moodle, but also through Chalk and Wire. Now, please remember, when you submit on Chalk and Wire, there should be your artifact reflection and your lesson plan before you hit submit. Please, please check that. It's going to save us a lot of time and headache if you check it before you hit submit. Your Forum 5.1 is to view the video below and share how your view of dyslexia has changed.